Hello ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Evolving Consciousness. I'm your host Purushottam, and in today's video we are going to unravel, we are going to discover the true secret or the secret code for boundless motivation, boundless inspiration. Now you might be wondering what this PNP code stands for. This PNP is something which drives every thought, action, belief, our behavior, our deepest rooted beliefs. All of these are being driven by these two manifestations of the letter V. Now let me tell you what these two P's stand for. These two P's stand for pain and pleasure. Yes, you heard it right. Every human action, every human endeavor, whether conscious or unconscious, is always oscillating between what gives them pleasure and what are the things which helps them avoid pain. Just ask yourself this question. What are the activities which I am deliberately avoiding so that I avoid pain? And what are the activities which I engage in either consciously or unconsciously which give me a sense of pleasure? Now this principle, if we are able to utilize it for our own advantage, this will lead to boundless motivation. Now you need not read as much books to get pumped up or watch videos to get pumped up. This secret, this principle, if effectively leveraged, it has the potential to achieve the goals which you have put yourself into, and also help you debunk or break the belief, the habits which are not serving you anymore. Now let's dive deep into this principle of pain and pleasure. This principle was initially introduced to the world by the great psychologist Sigmund Freud, wherein he noticed and observed that every action, every choice which each of us take in a typical day is driven through this pain and pleasure principle. Now just think of it. The fact of brushing your teeth, the fact of dressing yourself up in a way which appeals to people, every one of that, there is a pleasure of feeling good. There is a pleasure of having that feeling of looking good and appealing, right? And also, if you look at on the flip side, we are always trying to avoid pain. If you look at the root of all addictions and the root of all bad habits, the underlying principle or the underlying thought process behind that is to avoid pain. A very simple example which you and me can relate from, or anyone can understand. The number one reason why people indulge in all addictive substances, all intoxications which are not good for our body and mind, we know about it. We know it as an intellectual concept. We know that mindlessly scrolling on the internet is not good for us. But why do we still engage in it? The reason we engage in it is, it sort of gives us a temporary relief from the pain. It sort of helps us to get a sort of a distraction from the current mental thought process which we are in. Now, this is deeply explored in so many different ways, in so many different books, but at the crux of it, it is said that the motivation for avoiding pain is naturally higher as compared to the motivation to gain pleasure. Now, let me give you a very funny and amusing example to better illustrate this principle. Now suppose you have a suitcase filled with a lot of wealth, right? A lot of money there. And suddenly you see that there is a lion chasing you. Now obviously the pleasure of getting that suitcase filled with money would not propel you to sort of risk your own life. Obviously you will try to avoid the pain of getting killed by the lion and you will run away. Essentially what I am trying to invite you to consider is, when we are seeing which liver dominates, it is the liver of avoiding the pain versus acquiring the pleasure. That's the reason why exercise seems to be an extremely Herculean task. That's the reason why most people avoid exercising. That's the reason why discipline is naturally considered a hard virtue to nurture. Because discipline is hard. Having that strict routine, having the strict regime is monotonous. It gives you a sense of monotony and boredom and pain, right? And we want to avoid that pain, and due to the fact that we want to avoid the pain, we sort of break the discipline. But if you understand the mechanics of it and you sort of calibrate your day, your life, your choices in such a way that avoiding the pain is sort of mapped to the things which you shouldn't do, and pleasure is associated with things which are good for you, then you can completely change the paradigm, the mechanics of your own beliefs and habits. Now, let us understand this more deeply. Let me deconstruct this concept, this principle, which is sort of widely discussed in intellectual circles and psychological communities, because this is the principle which is the source of all motivations. No matter how many inspiring stories I tell, no matter how many inspiring cases you hear of deliberate practice, of discipline, of having perseverance, resilience, nothing is going to work unless you tune these two essential elements of our human psychology to your benefit. Now, let us take an example to better understand this. Now, suppose someone wants to sort of completely change the way he looks in terms of the physicality, right? He wants to come up in peak shape. Now, there are a couple of things which probably you and me, everybody know about it, that we should eat healthy, we should have a strict diet regime, we should sort of curb all the non-active activities, right? Things which are going to make us more lethargic. So how can we use the P&P principle, the pain and pleasure principle, for our advantage? Now, always think of this paradigm, right? If you want to distinguish between what is the right activity for you and what is the not so good activity, there is a beautiful way of looking at it. Any activity which gives you short-term pleasure but provides you long-term pleasure, short-term pain but long-term pleasure. Any activity which provides you short-term pain but long-term pleasure, and it provides you a benefit at body, mind and soul level, that is a good activity to engage in. And any activity which provides you short-term pleasure but long-term pain, that is not a good activity for you. You can apply this principle in the different dimensions of life. Now, suppose you want to smoke or indulge in some addictive habit. Now, in such a case, in such a scenario, that any addictive tendency or habit will give you the short-term pleasure, right? But essentially, it is giving you a long-term pain because you are addicting to yourself to that particular activity. Now, neuroscience knows for a fact that there are neurochemicals which are released in our brain, and the number one neurochemical or neurotransmitter which is sort of the foundation for all addictions is dopamine, the pleasure-seeking hormone. Dopamine is called the molecule of more, and it is considered to be the root, the source of all great successes and catastrophic failures. As I said in one of my earlier videos, dopamine can either make you or break you. Dopamine is the reason behind the greatest success. Dopamine is the hormone which is responsible for enthusiasm, and dopamine is also the hormone which is responsible for the most chronic addictions. And what is in the foreplay of dopamine? It is pain and pleasure essentially. So it's up to you and me to make best use of dopamine through the choices we take, right? If we are constantly looking for activities which give us short-term pleasure and they avoid long-term pain, those are not the right activities. Whenever you feel like engaging in things which give you a short-term dose of dopamine, a short-term pleasure, always remind yourself of the long-term pain. And one very interesting thing to note here is, it is also said that emotions are more stronger than our intellectual thoughts. And it is said that feelings sync to your subconscious mind. And that's the reason why emotions are considered to be more powerful, because emotions have a palpable effect in the body. It is said that emotions and feelings are our body's response to our thoughts. Hence, emotions can be used for advantage. Hence, it's also said that when you want to achieve anything lofty in your life, or when you are emotionally engaged and fueled with a purpose for any activity, then the probability of you achieving success in that goal is higher, because you have emotionalized it, because you have invested your emotions into it. And once you invest your emotions into it, your brain automatically aligns your thoughts, behaviors and patterns in such a way that you will automatically be propelled to take the right choices, which are in alignment in the achievement of your goals. Now, Anthony Tony Robbins, who probably is the most celebrated coaches in the self-help community, who has trained the best coaches in the world, he tells something beautiful. He says that each day you must either choose pain or pleasure, right? So he says that the secret to all success is the fact that we learn how to use pain and pleasure instead of allowing pain and pleasure to use us, right? Most of us are allowing pain and pleasure to use us instead of we being aware of what are the choices we need to make so that we can use it for our benefit. Now, this can be applied to so many different ways. That's the reason the PNP principle is sort of universal, because this can be applied to the smallest of habits to achieving the biggest of goals which seem impossible. And it is said that pain is a great motivator as compared to achieving success, right? So people who land up in great catastrophes or painful conditions, right, be it in any dimension of your life, if they are someone who rise up to the occasion and use that as a motivation to become a better personality, to become a more powerful personality, that serves as a powerful motivator for them, and their actions are known to be more consistent versus someone who is chasing something for the pleasure of it, right? It is often said that Cristiano Ronaldo became great because he hated the pain of failure. In one of the interviews, Mr. Shah Rukh Khan also said that fear of failure haunted him. So his actions were always motivated by the fear of failure. Hence, he always wanted to avoid the pain, and hence he calibrated his actions, his work to such a level that fear of failure becomes only a part of his imagination. The point I am trying to repeatedly bring to your attention is how powerful avoiding pain can serve as a motivator. But we need to be very aware of the fact what kind of pains we need to allow us, because let's remember, pain does serve us, especially short-term pains, the things which sort of give us a discomfort. A simple example, if you start exercising or if you start going to the gym on a regular basis, you are going to face excruciating pain. For a couple of days, you will feel a lot of palpable pain, but that palpable short-term pain is eventually leading to the pleasure of having a good physique, a well-built body. Now, this is not only this is a physiological manifestation of what I just told, but this can also be applied in psychological avenues. Now, most people avoid meditating. The number one reason they avoid meditating is because they are scared that all the emotional pain, the hurt, the resentments, the grudges, they all will come up to the surface and they would have to say it, and their mind is going topsy-turvy, right? But that pain is needed for the healing to happen. It is said healing is an extremely painful process, and most of us avoid this kind of emotional healing because they don't want to face the feelings of discomfort and unease. It is beautifully said that once you have a very septic infection, only when the pus bursts, right, the healing begins. And the bursting of the pus is very painful. Most of us in the psychological dimension, we try to avoid the pain, we try to distract ourselves in different ways instead of facing the pain and going to the root of it. The reason why entertainment industry, the reason why all these things which sort of distract our attention are such a hit, number one reason is humans are avoiding pain. They consider pain as their worst enemy. But what they fail to acknowledge is pain is inevitable. What did I just say? Yes, there is no escape for pain. It's only a question. It's only a question of the kind of pain you would like to experience. Would you like to experience a pain which will serve you, or would you like to experience a pain, or would you like to avoid a pain for that short-term pleasure, but eventually you will have to face that pain? A simple example, suppose you decide that I don't want to face the pain of workout and I'm going to indulge in my pleasure. What is the point of working out, right? If this is your mindset, if this is the mindset through which your choices are sort of taken, sooner or later there will come a time in your life where the pain of disease will strike you and you cannot avoid that. Now this is the fallacy of pain and pleasure. We think that we can avoid pain by engaging in certain activities which give us short-term pleasure, but the amusing and the fallacy behind all this is there is no way to avoid pain. So why not choose a pain which serves us? Why not engage in activities which give us that pain, but they have a long-serving purpose, they have a long-serving cause? I hope this mechanics of pain and pleasure is enlightening to you, is eye-opening to you. Because most of us, we don't have a sort of consistent sense of motivation or drive. The reason being that we are searching for drive from the outside sources. That is great to ignite the initial spark. But we need to understand the mechanics which drives our behavior. We need to understand the mechanics of what is driving my choice 1 versus choice 2, right? Between two choices, what choice I will take purely depends on what is my equation with the pain and pleasure. And it is also beautifully said that perception is reality. In the sense that what you see in this world is your reality. Now, pain and pleasure is heavily based on perception. Let me give you an example. Now, suppose there are two people and one of them is very infuriated and yells on the other person from a place of anger. Now, let's say this person, let's call the person A, and the person A gets extremely hurt, right? Now, in place of person A, if there was a person B in the same situation, it's not necessary that person would be hurt, instead he would be curious. Now what happened? The same situation, but they were two different reactions by two different people. Which means to say that basically pain and pleasure is just a byproduct of perception. What is the perception I had towards that situation? Now this is something which has been also, if I just got a thought about a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, wherein James Allen says that most people think that a particular situation brought about a reaction in a person, but no, that's not the case. That emotion was already there in that person. What that situation did was to bring about the emotions which are already there, latent in that person outside. He said, he gave a beautiful answer that a saint can never come to a jail. Probably the saint was secretly harboring feelings of negativity and feelings of evil. It's only because of that the situation brought about the right atmosphere for that emotion to come out, right? So whenever we are stuck in this crossroads of what is universally labeled as right or wrong, we need to ask ourselves, if there were 5 people in the same situation, if the response would be different, that means we are viewing that situation as right or wrong, but actually it's neutral. This is the case with probably most of our realities, right? Most of our realities are just a subject of perception. How we view it, it's all a matter of that. It's all a question of that. The reason I brought about this point of perception is you can change the way you look at pain and pleasure, right? So you can consider these particular aspects to serve you. You can consider pain as serving you, right? So once you build on this kind of an awareness, then you will understand how you can utilize this for your advantage. Because if you deeply understand this principle, pain and pleasure, you can implement this and apply this to not only to your lofty material goals, but also the small aspects of your life which require a certain level of improvement or which have a scope of improvement. Hope this principle of pain and pleasure served you, because if you are able to sort of deconstruct this principle, it's going to be very effective and you don't need discipline. Let's understand, there is a video which I had uploaded in my channel, The Mechanics of Habits, which was inspired by the legendary work of James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. In that book I had sort of deconstructed the mechanics of habit building and why discipline is probably not a very strong catalyst to create a habit, because we human beings, as per neuroscience, have a limited reserve of willpower and discipline. Hence, instead of using discipline for everything, I think we can sort of calibrate the seesaw of pain and pleasure to our own advantage, so that we become a more productive human being, so that we grow. Because let's remember, hard work is not always the right approach. You need to be smart. You need to be smart in handling your brain, because ultimately that is the source of all creation and destruction. Hence, use your brain productively instead of letting your brain use you destructively. Hope today's video was sort of enlightening and also gave you some very important scientific principles on the mechanics of how the brain works and how our choices are taken. And if you really enjoyed this video, do share it with a couple of your friends. Also give me your candid feedback about what you thought about this video and what are the things which can be improved on the video, right? I'm open to constructive feedback. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you really are enjoying the genre of the content which I share in this channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you like to receive notification of my videos whenever I upload them. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sincerely grateful and I respect your time on my video. Thank you so much and meet you in the next video. Bye.